Recording is on.
Okay, great. Well, thank y'all for joining us today for week 7. We are 7 weeks running strong. Have some great participation on here, so I really appreciate that. As we said before, Cheryl will be jumping on probably in the next few minutes. She had a chiropractor appointment, which I'm jealous. It seems like she has a chiropractor that comes to her house at 7 o'clock in the morning. That's amazing, and I want that. But anyways, so starting off, today's topic is, talking about what trends or changes you see on the horizon for your industry/career. And we've kind of touched on stuff like this before, and that's kind of the whole point of this mastermind is to look to the future, look at what's happening now, and try to strategize, adapt, and move correctly in that. So I have 2 quotes today, and don't be disheartened by them. So the first one is from Winston Churchill, and it is, "I always avoid prophesying beforehand because it is much better to prophesy after the event has already taken place." That's the old hindsight is 2020. We know that. And the other is from Edgar R. Fiedler from the book The 3 R's of Economic Forecasting: irrational, irrelevant, and irreverent. So his quote is, "He who lives by the crystal ball soon learns to eat ground glass." So, this is kind of like all of this said is kind of the way view strategy in the future. It's like Mike Tyson said, third quote is, "Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face." Well, this coronavirus has definitely been a punch to our face economically, socially, and, just straight up to our businesses and our jobs. So trying to predict the future, as we all know, is ridiculous. I heard a quote before also that was like the Wall Street has predicted 9 of the last 6 recessions. 9 out of 6. It's no one ever knows really what's going. The best that we can do is take the information we have, the knowledge we have, and actually put it to use. And how we do that impacts our business positively or negatively. So on the note of what I see right now, it's kind of 3 things in my industry. And, I'm not going to touch too much on one of them. It's something that Andrew and Darby actually know a lot more about, and that's, the financing side of it. But one thing on the buy side that I think we're going to see in commercial real estate is actually a rise of the iBuyer. We saw this in residential a few years, meaning, basically you can buy the house without leaving your home. And I don't think this is necessarily going to be for portfolio buys or passive buys in commercial. I think this might be more mid-market, people trying to, put their money in different asset classes. And I already kind of see this. We have a presence here in Atlanta called 10X, and they're kind of like an auction website, I guess is the best way to put it, for commercial properties. And with showings way down, of course, since we can't go out, virtual showings, people getting more use to the internet use and the virtual space, especially some of these people that have never touched it before, the boomers that are on this call, that are, brand new technologies, other aspects like that. So rise of commercial iBuyer in mid-market. Also, this is something that I think we touched on the other week.
And Reed, not to interject, but CoStar just bought 10X.
They did, really? I did not know that.
Yeah. Who was that? I'm sorry.
CoStar.
Okay.
CoStar bought
really
10X this week. So I'm not sure if that was in the works prior to COVID, but if it was a post-COVID catalyst, that definitely tracks your
wow. Yeah. Wow. Well, I'm glad you said that. I didn't. I'm surprised. You know what? It was probably in a message. I have a rep over there that blows me up constantly, but I'll say this.
You brought it up, if anything.
Yeah, no, I did not see that. Well, and my whole thing about 10X is I think it's fraud is what they do, and that's a whole nother rabbit hole. They do massive fraud.
Yeah.
When they came and presented, at Ackerman, I went and talked to this investor right afterwards, and I said, "What is your thought on that?" He goes, "That's fraud." I was like, "That's what I thought." Okay, but that's a whole other thing. Well, I'm glad you told me that. So at least I was partially right on something, hopefully. But yeah, so definitely rise of the iBuyer, I think, and then also, lack of supply. And this is what I think is because, I'm not the only one repeating this. I've had a few calls this week that talked about this, as well as a CoStar article. Is buyers think that this is going to be a fire sale, which don't think that's going to be necessarily the case. This crisis was not economically induced like it was before, which we've all talked about. These people aren't over leveraged or poorly leveraged, on it. And it seems to be the people that are in a good position that hold a lot of these commercial assets are smarter with their money and they can sit on it. They might be able to weather this a little bit longer, and it's not going to put such a strain on the prices. And I've seen this with some portfolio sales internally, and kind of what we're experiencing here in the market right now. People are looking for these deals, but they just don't exist, at least not yet. Who knows what Q4 of next year will bring, but that. And then my third thing is, this is more of a question, is where's office space going to be? This is something I've been talking about ever since we started this, but more space might be needed in order to keep the same number of staff or close to, and to keep up with current regulations, to abide by it. So what does that mean? Does that mean that companies are going to be doing the alternation, like Matt brought up the other week, or is it going to be the negative that the companies, the corporations might just default on some of these leases? And what is that going to mean for these landlords? So that's where I kind of see everything, and it's about sticking to the hedgehog concept, what my business is, and what we can focus on and control. So that's my goal and focus going forward. And once you have a plan, you try to stick to it, but it should more be the concept, and we have to adjust every day, especially in this environment. So that is everything for me, and I'll shut up. I think I had Matt go last week first, even though he's got a fresh haircut today. I think, Andrew, if you'll kick us off starting around, and then we'll just go from there.
Let's see. Am I still echoing, or are we good now?
No, you're good. You sound clear.
Yeah.
All right.
Sound good.
Yeah, that's interesting, Reed, that you bring that up. I was talking to someone about that yesterday. I've kind of had a shift in my logic. I originally thought that the office square footage was actually going to go down in the next 5 to 10 years, meaning that a lot of offices are going to realize how, this work from home thing's working great. We can all just, come in once a week, or maybe even just all work remote, and they can save on office space and square footage. And that would take, a few years to implement because of commercial leases, being long durations. But I've been starting to think that maybe it's going to go the other direction, and maybe it's going to be we need more square footage in order to implement, giant workspaces and, just to keep people away from each other. So I'm wondering if there's going to be a shift where there's going to be additional square footage, but less dollars per square foot. I don't know if that's going to happen. I'm trying, real estate's all about trends and where the next trend is going to be and who can get there first. So I think, Matt, you brought up, airports don't want to invest in money in changing the entire layouts of the terminal areas, just for something that might be here for 6 months to a year. Yeah. Same thing, I think, in offices. And I think it's going to be interesting to see where this ends up, and who can capitalize on that is really going to do well. One thing that I was talking about, and everyone in the real estate industry always talks about, is malls. Malls are going away, and what's going to take their place. I mean, they have a huge footprint. I mean, they have the mall itself, which is normally pretty big, and then they have a parking lot around it that is, 4 times the size of it.
Yeah.
Is this, if more space is required, is this an opportunity for people to jump on more malls and repurposing malls for something that could be utilized in a better manner? Just an idea, that's just trying to merge the two ideas as something. But the question is, where is the next trend with this coronavirus? I mean, obviously the first question is, how long is this really here to stay? Nobody knows. You hear 2 years, 1 month. What did LA just come out with, saying that they're going to be in there until September? Yeah. So
Communism.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, what do you, who do you believe? What do you do? You can't win it right now, and trying to predict it is kind of the first question. And then, where is the trend going? I think office space is going to change. I don't know which direction. I was originally leaning towards people are going to work from home. They're going to stagger it. We're going to share desks. And then I started thinking maybe people are going to be too worried about this, and we're going to go the other direction, and everyone's going to have, private offices again. Open office space is going to go away.
Yeah, cubicles are coming back, y'all. They're going to have to. They might be clear. But look at Matt. No. I mean, you build them out. You know much more to that. Hey, nice product placement again. By the way, I see your mug.
Thank you.
Yeah. I agree, Andrew. How is this affecting on y'all's side? Then, what do you see on the finance side? The construction consulting loan side for that. What is that going to mean for you?
I don't know yet. I don't know. I haven't really dealt. I have 2 deals right now that are in the process of equity verification to close, and one has been done for a while, for about a month now, and we can't close because the clerk's offices are closed in the county, and therefore they can't register anything. So the developer is literally sitting on their hands saying, let's get this thing done, and nothing can happen. And then I have another equity verification that the guy doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't even know what equity means, basically. So that's been fun. Yeah. It's not been a fun process. So I know that doesn't really answer your question, but where I was going with that is, I haven't seen any changes to LTV ratios or LTC ratios yet. I would think that office space, the LTV might change in the financing side. I don't know which direction, and I don't know where, but I know that that's going to be looked at. And Reed, I know we've talked. I'm curious to know what's going to happen in the next 2 to 3 months, because there's a lot of people and some newer, I'll call them REITs, or private lending firms, that just entered into some very, very high LTC deals. And if they're not getting paid and they're not getting the proper, tenants in, then I think that they're going to have some significant issues. They're offering a lot of provisions for the developer of, telling them, yes, we can do some forbearance. Yes, we can do this. And, around the larger entities that I work with, they're saying, we're not doing any forbearance. If you're not paying us now, why are you going to pay us in 3 months? So I know the largest one, they're not offering forbearance on any one of their deals, period. They are not. And that's probably the largest lending in the world. So I won't say the name, but yeah, they're not offering it at all.
Really?
So interesting to see some of the smaller ones offering these provisions saying, yeah, well, why don't you wait till September and pay us? The bigger ones are saying, no, we're not doing forbearance at all. So, and I'm curious to know how that's going to play out, and see. But I really think that there's going to be opportunity for people to jump into the real estate game on some deals that go south.
Okay. Well, that's good. That's good to know. So you're basically saying that the lending isn't strong enough, some of these companies, and then the ones that are stronger might be able to come in and save the deal?
I think, I mean,
Okay.
I think there's some lending companies out there that made bad deals that they got into the game hearing, oh, this is great. It's a secured asset. Let's just lend them, $30 million. And, it's tied to this piece of property, which is worth, $35 million. What can I lose? And they're like, here's a 85% LTV. Here you go. Do your renovations, and then it goes south, and then they're sitting with this piece of property that lost some value, and they don't know what to do with it, and they don't know how to turn the screws on the developer to actually do something with it and deal with the situation. So I think there's some uneducated. Maybe not uneducated, inexperienced lenders out there that provided some poor capital on real estate deals. And I think that the people that are going to jump on that are going to be the winners. The developer might not even go under. It might be the actual lender.
That's what I was thinking.
Totally different. I'm unsure if it's going to be the borrower that's actually going the wrong direction, or the lender that's going the wrong direction, or both. I mean, it could be the borrower doesn't pay any of their interest payments, and then the lender also can't finance everything as they thought they could, and they declare bankruptcy, and then one of the big guys has to come in and save the day.
Okay. So it sounds like there's definitely going to be some room for opportunity, is what you see for stronger leverage or stronger setup companies. Well, great. So, Darby, are you ready, or would you like one more person to go? Because I feel like you could probably build off that, or but if you're not ready, we could move on to someone else and come back to you next.
Oh yeah, I'm happy to chat.
Okay.
But yeah, largely a lot of what you said, I definitely agree with. Our biggest thing right now, if I get micro with my role, acquisitions, it's sort of, valuing the landscape correctly, and the biggest piece to that is sort of this, government assistance.
Darby, real quick. Hey, sorry, I want to jump in real quick. Could you give a who you work for and a brief description of what actually you do and everything to get a little bit better context real quick? Sorry.
Sure, yeah. So I work for the beach company out of Charleston, South Carolina, and they're, developer, acquirer, manager, a little bit of everything. And I work on the acquisition fund value add for multifamily, and the acquisition manager for that team. So a lot of time spent in that space. But yeah, to go back, with that, the CARES Act largely, I'm not going to go to politics on it, but it has implications, good or bad, on our work. And I think with the next piece, it kicks that can further. And so what's difficult for us is knowing what is real and what is being masked by that support. You can look at it in a variety of ways. The obvious ones are the inability to file evictions and late fees. It sounds evil to say that, but those are tools to ensure people pay rent. I personally, if you said, Darby, you don't have to pay rent for 4 months, I wouldn't do that. I mean, I'm consider myself responsible enough to save that money for 4 months so I can pay it when it's due. I would if you told me that in March, I would probably throw that money in the market. So it's not just those that won't pay. It's those that read the law and work around it. There's that piece. There's also, in 40 states right now, it's more advantageous to be unemployed than employed. And you get these anecdotal stories of salon workers, getting angry with their owner because the owner's trying to get them back to work, thinking they're doing something good, and the employees are like, "Look, I'm making 1.25 times what I was making before. Don't ruin this thing for me. Let's start back in 6 months when this all wears off." And the question is, well, can that salon open back up in 6 months? And does a furloughed employee become an unemployed person? And how does that all play out? So that's a piece that's sort of it's COVID related, but it's not truly someone sheltering in place. And that's just one example. And then the HEROES Act, the Part 2, the $3 billion that is coming out, it contemplates extending that eviction moratorium for an additional year from the passing of that bill. So that could 12 months, whenever that passes. Not sure if that's going to get through, but that's the environment we're in. So, when you hear that, it's hard for us to get in the weeds on any one deal when you just know the whole rug can be pulled up from underneath you, with legislation like that. So that's currently our biggest focus. And look, again, I can't stress enough how understand that it's necessary and required. So I'm not arguing against that. It's just the nature of the beast that as you have to be reactive at a government level to this environment. You're sort of along for the ride, and just makes it harder to make decisions and the like. So that's definitely forefront of my mind, along with everything else everyone's saying. But I sort of go back to those things are null and void until we're in an environment where there's some sense of what's up, what's down, what's left, what's right, etc.
Yeah, for real. I know. So clarification, you're saying on the HEROES Act that there might be a moratorium for a year. Is that on the evictions and charging late fees? Is that what you're talking about? Y'all might not be able to do that.
An additional 1 year moratorium to charging evictions or late fees.
Yeah.
So,
damn.
And I think with all of this in general too, it's even if they don't do another year extension, what's it going to look like in 4 months when everyone can evict all at once? And the court system will be crowded, tenants will skip. I mean, it'll be messy. So I think the term soft landing is sort of what's been thrown around in my sphere a little bit of how can they do that? And if not, what's it going to look like if there's sort of a hard landing? And I don't, there's no answer. I don't have the answer, but it's definitely, like Reed said, you can't predict the future, just work with the information you have. And so that's where we're trying to get as much information as possible and stay in front of that piece of how it impacts us positively or negatively and be able to react to it appropriately.
Yeah. How is this? I know you're on the acquisition side, but just from the company side, how is the developments moving forward with all this? I mean, I know I was on the call the other week with them, but I'm curious to see how everything's still going because daily shit changes. So.
Yeah, everything's moving forward. Central businesses, especially, we're mostly Southeast based, and I don't think any state has stopped construction. So it's all been moving forward. I think, if you look at the company historically, we were very fortunate to have really nothing in the process of being bought, process of being sold, process of being refied, or, a lot of product trying to lease up. So we sort of, if you look at 75 years and say what works good for a pandemic, it's not the way to think about it, but it's not. They're fairly well positioned, for something that's just for a black swan event, if you will.
Right.
But it's week to week, month to month, and we don't, no crystal ball just yet, but it's day to day. But as of now, everything is sort of afloat, moving forward. No real concerns, I believe, from financing standpoint and the like.
Okay. Are y'all still planning on moving into the Sergeant Jasper at the same time?
January 1st, still being planned.
Okay.
So yeah, everything's moving forward.
Okay. Well, that's good to hear. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. That's going to make
You
it
know,
tough. That's going to be the biggest thing, like you said, is trying to. I didn't even think about the court system being overloaded. And if anyone is familiar with any type of government entity, especially here in Atlanta, it is going to be the biggest shit show possible. So I don't even know if we'll. Yeah, there's people that are just going to be courting in the court system. I guarantee you, just walking out midday. So who knows? I didn't even think about that backlash. That was a very good point. Yeah.
it'll be frothy, and again, it's not about wanting to evict folks, but
Yeah.
you know, it's the only incentive you have for someone to, that and a late fee is it. Otherwise, you're living for free.
Yep. Exactly.
So.
No, well, I appreciate it. That was some very insightful. All right. Well, Cheryl, you're in a car. I don't want to keep you in a parking lot forever. So why don't you keep it with the keep with the lending? Go. You're up. How was your chiropractor?
It was great. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes my Bluetooth through the car doesn't work very well, so just wanted to make sure. So chiropractor was amazing, and you know, there's a couple of things going on in the lending world. I'm seeing purchases start to relax, but refinances are starting to tighten up. So as an example of that, cash out refinances are generally across the board relegated to about $25,000 out. And we have something like $8 billion in equity sitting out there that means that a lot of people aren't going to be able to touch, because we're also lowering our loan to value on cash out refinances. So that's going to be tough. If we're talking about kind of the future of what's going on, there's a lot of new information coming out about forbearances and about what lenders are going to be required to do. So we're all sifting through that right now. And from what I understand, what came out on Wednesday is sort of delayed, and they're already working on more releases. So whatever we say today is probably going to change in a week or two. So who really knows?
Right.
You know, my real concern is these cash out refinances, because, you know, as we've got people who have struggles, they're going to need that money out, and they're not going to be able to get it. Less people are going to be able to get it. And so that concerns me a little bit. Rates are finally starting to trend down a little bit. I had a guy call me yesterday, and he's like, hey, I'm seeing 2.75 as rates. Well, yes and no. Right now, on average, a 2.75 rate in most of the lending world is going to cost you probably 1 3/4, 2, unless you're working with UWM, and that happens to be that's a brokered lender, and they just came out with a brand new program where they're doing 2.5 for just about everybody. And UWM can do that because they are haircutting everything on their side. Their strategy is to gain as much market share as they possibly can, to almost whatever detriment to their company. So I'll be interested to see how this goes. They did that at the end of last year as well. They were essentially my only competition, and they shut down faster than everybody else, and now they're opening back up with this craziness. So we'll see.
Oh, wow. So I know one of your original things that you were talking about, and obviously everything changes day to day, was that you were saying that you thought rates were still going to drop down, even like below 1, maybe really low, especially cash out. Do you still see that happening, you think?
So, you know, as we get more direction from the Fed and how they're going to support lenders, yes, I think we'll see that. But I don't think it's going to be immediate. You know, again, I listen to smarter people than me. And, you know, if we're talking about the ones, we're talking about 15-year fixed, right? If we're talking about twos, we're talking about 30-year fixed. And will we get there? Probably, because that's going to help stimulate the economy, or it's going to help get money moving again. But right now, there's just too many questions up in the air, and how lenders are going to deal with all this forbearance, especially if it gets extended. We had a lot of good news out of Calabria last week when he adamantly said that forbearances for mortgages were going to end on May 30th. But we know that Congress has a different idea on that. So we'll see how that all bears out. And then, we don't want to end up in a situation like we did in 2008 where we start having to foreclose on people in bulk, just like the eviction notices in the courts, right? So we're hiring people, things are getting, mistakes are being made, people are being foreclosed on incorrectly, and then now they have rights to come back, right? So, because that's what will happen, lenders will just hire inexperienced people to look at paperwork, and mistakes will happen.
Right.
So, and it's going to be the same
Are you
kind of
starting?
thing. I'm sorry.
I was gonna ask, are you starting to see appraisals come down in value? Or are you still hitting the values you need?
Nope, we're still hitting values right now, and this is kind of a contention in the real estate lending world and residential, is that with the advent of Zillow and all these online automated values, the push has been to go to automated values for all houses. No walkthroughs, maybe a drive-by to make sure it's still standing, but the push has been to that in the near past, and so I think this is going to accelerate that. I just had a purchase, and we ordered a full appraisal because that's what the client wants, and the appraiser said, no, we're going to do a desk value because that's allowed, which means they'll never go look at the property.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, that's very interesting.
So anecdotally, I was just going to say, I've had a family friend, their appraisal came in, 10% undervalued compared to what they thought they were going to be. And it was a haircut to their cash out refi and all the above.
Yeah.
And on the commercial side, that's what our lenders are saying is sort of their next fear is that, if we get down the rope it's 2 months to close one of these commercial deals and they're big, et cetera. We go down and all of a sudden the appraisal doesn't tie out. It's just, that's another piece that we got to worry about, but
Right.
I think we should go to y'all's model with
right, desk value.
Well,
yeah, it's still standing. I promise.
Yeah.
Well, I do think that going automated will bring the prices down because you're not walking in the house and looking at all of the improvements. We're talking about all the improvements to the kitchen and upgrade to the roof or whatever. I think that you will see them come down because of automation.
Because you lose that human impression value. Yeah.
Right, and you exactly, because as an appraiser, they know what those things are valued in the market, where an algorithm won't know that.
Yeah.
Right. And what's popular here in Atlanta, it might not be popular in Florida. Right. Like pools here in Atlanta can go either way. It could be a huge detriment to a purchase or a huge asset. But if you were looking in Florida, everybody wants a pool. So, I think your algorithm is going to naturally bring that down a little bit. I haven't run into it yet personally. And in my groups, I'm not hearing about it yet. But I think that is coming for sure.
Wow. Well, no, that's good to know then especially if that's something that's on the forefront. How do you make then your property, is it worth doing those value add then to it in the long run?
So what will happen is that you start to see agents who are a little bit more savvy, because agents can talk to appraisers, lenders cannot. So if the agent is savvy, they are working with their client to gather information about what they've done to the house, which a lot of agents do already, but they physically talk to the appraiser. So now it's going to be an email back and forth. Hey, just want to make sure you know X, Y, and Z.
Right.
And that's where a great agent's going to come in. Plus, if you've got an agent who's familiar with the area, they're going to know what sells homes.
True.
So that's going to be another selling point for agents as the iBuyers come back into the market.
See, there's my key word. You totally touched on what I said earlier about the iBuyer.
Yep, they're coming back into the market. But and they're gonna have, for me, they would have to do a ton of marketing for me to trust them. I didn't trust them anyway, but the fact that they sent out hundreds of emails within, and said, look, I'm sorry, we're not going to buy your house, and here we're going to offer you $5,000, or we'll pay the commission to hire an agent for you. Well, wait a minute, we had a contract.
Yeah.
I was supposed to close in 10 days, right?
Yeah.
And now I can't buy my house because I can't close on this house.
No, I agree. I agree. I was involved with one of those. Totally understand. Yeah.
Oh, no.
I mean, that's good to know that stuff's kind of coming down the pipeline. I guess it is still, it's good news to hear that rates possibly will drop for refi, but it sounds like you're saying that it's definitely going to be harder to get the amount of equity out that you want.
It's still going to be harder. And then the next thing for the future, mortgage prepayment penalties are coming.
Really? Yeah. I mean, that's the new, as Dave Ramsey says, paying off your mortgage is the new BMW symbol. So I guess that makes sense then.
I mean, it's going to be 6 months to a year probably.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason I think that's coming is because I am hearing that lenders are currently reaching out to their clients to offer them forbearance instead of the clients calling them.
Mm-hmm.
And my theory on that is because they know that Fannie and Freddie are not going to change their guidelines, and any loan that's in their forbearance cannot refinance or
oh, I gotcha.
for 12 months. So they're essentially forcing a prepayment penalty.
That makes sense.
And keeping that loan on their books by offering forbearance.
Oh, I gotcha.
Instead of losing the loan. Because most lenders don't break even. It takes them about 3 years to break even on a cost of a mortgage.
Really?
So they want to keep that in-house for 3 years. And if rates go down, they know people are going to refinance, and not necessarily with them. So they're kind of hedging their bets.
Okay, that's very interesting. That is very interesting.
So they're willing to take a haircut for 3 or 4 months, maybe 6, if they know they can keep it on their books for another year to 3.
Yeah. So they're using this as a tool, which is smart for them business-wise, but might not be great for the masses then.
That means people won't be able to take advantage of those lower rates.
Exactly.
A year.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, thank you. Roman, are you there? See if he's got unmute. He was in the car earlier. Roman? Okay. Nope. I guess he's just on mute right now. Awesome. Well then, Dad, if you're up next.
Okay. Well, it's been very interesting to listen this morning, and I'm not in the real estate business, but obviously I'm affected by the real estate business. So just in my small little world, I'll just tell you an example of a small businessman dealing with some real estate. My landlord, I had paid my rent for May, and they came back and said, hey, we're not going to cash your check. We think that we're going to give you this month and next month free rent. And so I took that as an opportunity, and I said, well, what about some more space? And so they said, yeah. So I'm basically going to double my space, and I've got free rent until September. So that, again, it's not big space like you guys deal with, but just for a small business, it really helps us. And it gives me the area to be able to expand with some more people. So listening to what you guys are saying, just trying to relate back to it. The other thing, and Cheryl, you may confirm or deny this, but I talked to a builder this week, and he said all the new homes that they're going to build in the next 18 months, he says, we are making sure that we have an office in our new homes. He said, everybody's thinking about that. He says that's going to be one of our selling points, that we're building an office in the home. So, uh,
Yeah.
whether that's true or not, I just thought I would make that statement. I'm just stating the obvious, but that's what he said. And these are all new homes for the rest of 2020 and 2021. So, anyway, that's about all I have to offer. I've really been interested in what you guys are saying. We have this week we've talked to about 60 different businesses around the country. The good thing is all of them are in the same business. They're in the wireless internet business, which is one of our niches. And they have been going great guns because they said with COVID and everybody at home, we're trying to make sure that the internet is up and running. They said we haven't missed a day. So I'll, I'll leave you with that thought. So.
Oh, oh man. Well, hey, that's great. Congratulations on the expansion then. Yeah, that's huge. That's huge. Well, Roman, it's good to see your pretty face. Good,
I thought I was on the whole time. I actually saw everyone, heard everyone. I thought like people heard me.
Oh, that's the worst. That's the worst. Well, hey, then. Well, I'm glad you know. Then you're up next, and then Matt
Right.
after him, round it out, and then we'll just open up for discussion, and y'all can leave as you need to.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I share everyone's ideas and thoughts on this already. One thing that hasn't been mentioned is, and this is something we were talking with Renner House this week is, so I'm in property services, home services, and also with the software that supports service providers that run around and service properties, right? And so it's very important to us to see what's happening to the rental market, obviously, right? And what we're seeing is a lot of people staying home, and there is a rise of just workflow for construction companies that are kind of focused on home services rather than like new construction or so, because people spending a lot more time in their homes. And to the earlier point about making offices in the houses, people starting to adjust their rooms and so on to office spaces now. So that's been interesting. But more importantly, in rental space, a lot of SFRs now considering buying big tracts of land and developing build to rent, not only in the areas where previously they wanted to make sure there is a transportation nearby, public transportation, or it's close to the city. They're willing to go further out. They're willing to go 40 minutes away from the city, buy land that's somewhat cheaper. And because now people are going to be willing to spend more time further out from the city, not necessarily close to the offices, because now they have an option to sort of work from home. So that's been interesting wave of interest on SFRs and how they're now considering different criteria on building out, renovating, acquiring properties way further out for their rental market. And that's huge shift in what we thought, when will the rental market come back, so that's kind of an interesting point that was brought up this week, and I think that's definitely something that's going to be taking place here this next year.
Yeah. Question on that then: how, like, if y'all are having to go, are y'all bidding on these farther away ones? And like, if y'all are bidding on these, what kind of strain does it put on mobilizing a crew for you to get out there?
Well, see, for construction companies that kind of work with SFRs, we have established pricing, so on. So there is not necessarily a lot of wasted trips or bidding scenario going on. All the prices normally already established.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the interesting part is majority of the workforce isn't in the city anyway. They're further out already there. So it's actually a plus. They're now not having to drive for an hour all the way to the city to do some work. They can stay around their home. So like Conyers, Loganville, like further out down Douglasville and further down towards Villa Rica, and those areas are now being considered a lot more than before. Or really any pockets even within the city that were further away from the public transportation are now really popping up on the map for us as far as interest. So there's going to be a lot of acquisition around that, I'm sure. As again, the focus there is now the commute is not going to be as necessary as it was before for the residents.
That's very true. That's
Yeah.
very true. Yeah, I know. I've seen just going around the city, and now that we're opening up back for business, traffic has definitely ticked up. But yesterday, Matt, I know you travel 75 a lot. I swear, it's everyone forgot how to drive. I mean, they had 75 South shut down yesterday afternoon completely. All lanes were blocked. When I thank God I was going north, but I mean, it's and there's a cop every quarter mile, and then so you got the people just slamming on brakes, and the commute may not be there like Roman said anymore, but the people commuting are dealing with worse stuff right now. It seems that
I think what's interesting.
I definitely noticed that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think what's interesting is it's the perception that they won't commute. People are gonna commute. People are gonna come out. They're gonna get really quickly bored of sitting in the houses or working out of home. They're gonna want to come out to the offices. But this perception is what drives the acquisition force right now. And I'm sure a lot of kind of decision making people within REITs and whatnot aren't that concerned of whether this is a perception or reality. Because to them it's business to acquire now and rent them out. And so once that happens, they're going to figure out a way how to, and people will cope with commute. So that's kind of sort of not necessarily what's going to be, right? We still don't know what's going to happen. It's back to the quote that you mentioned earlier, right? Something to I forgot exactly what you said, Reed, but it was something about forecasting or.
No, is you talking about the crystal ball one or Winston Churchill prophecy after the event?
Right.
Yeah. Exactly. Hindsight's 2020. Well, I swear you just had a golden nugget quote that I loved. You said perception drives acquisition. And that is very true, and I think that rings true in all different types of market. We all know that the stock market is completely based on consumer perception. It's based on fear indexes. It's not necessarily what is actually going on. It's all about how people react. And to, what we're seeing in the residential market, it's the same. And, in the office market, it's the same. It's all about perception. Really is the driving force behind it. Awesome. Well said. Is that it from you? I don't want to cut you early great. Well then, Matt, you're up to bat, brother. Let's bring it home for us from PGAL Studios.
Well, I mean, and kind of like what AC mentioned too. I mean, I'm a step behind in a lot of these subjects you're kind of talking about in the acquisition and office space. I mean, you guys are kind of dealing with getting the placement and the space for the people, and we're here to make it look good and make it livable. So, AC, you mentioned doubling your space. Hey, if you need an architect, reach out.
Right.
No, and actually, Reed and I were getting together on one of his clients this week, hoping to put together something for them, which is awesome. Also, but on the other side, I was looking over the subject on what we're seeing and what that's going to mean. The one thing that is giving me some concern is seeing what's happening within the travel industry, especially in terms of aviation. That is a big segment for our firm, and we are currently slammed with work. In fact, the ATL airport on-call just came out, and due to issues within the airport and the city purchasing, they are looking for new faces, which works with us well. We haven't been here at the airport since about 2012, so we're clean, we're experienced, and we're still kind of new for that. So hopefully that might work in our favor for once. But you know, I listened in on a BizNow hospitality, I think I mentioned, and they were saying it's going to be about a 3-year ramp up to get back to 2019 levels. Big component on that they all felt was either very effective therapeutic and or a vaccine. I mean, luckily there's a lot going on and there's work in place, but you know, I kind of felt that maybe a bit of a stretch, you know, that people just won't go anywhere without a vaccine in place. You know, that to me seemed a little reactionary, but if true, you know, how much of this is going to continue? I saw yesterday that Delta is actually retiring one of their larger nonstop jets for a more efficient Airbus model. So that doesn't work for Boeing very well. And if things don't start to turn around by February, March, they're going to have about 7,000 excess pilots.
Wow.
That's not good. You know, and I get an airport business report every day. They have been, because they have to petition and get approval to end routes to some of these smaller regional airports. And I mean, they're trying to end routes all over the place. One of them, actually not even a small regional, is Oakland, which is a pretty good size. I mean, it's not nearly as big as SFO, but it's on the other side of the bay, but it does a good volume. You know, so it's starting to see these things sort of trickle through, and I guess the big question is, how long is that going to take? Yeah, on the office side, is what Adam was kind of talking about, and what you guys are mentioning. That's going to be interesting as well to see. I mean, we have been seeing that kind of the open office for a while really isn't working like a lot of people thought it was. It's too noisy. It's too distracting. The productivity generally drops in those places. And so they've been kind of looking, okay, how do we get back to making this more productive, but also being cool and, you know, having the amenities that people are looking for. That's been a trend that's been on for a little while. And I think what you're talking about, Adam, is this is going to kind of push that forward and accelerate that trend as we go. So will that mean more space? Perhaps. I also wonder how many firms are going to say, hey, this working from home is actually working pretty well. Maybe we convert some of our office spaces into conference collab rooms and, you know, and have less desk space and just let people hotel as needed. I mean, that's another trend that's been going on for probably 5 years.
Yeah.
You know, so well, I think a lot of this will accelerate that. I also mentioned, I like what you're talking about with the malls. That's another thing that's been working through the pipeline. A lot of people trying to figure out, okay, do we turn these into senior centers? Do we turn these into healthcare facilities? You know, what's the next life for these? Or do we bulldoze the whole thing and redevelop an entire parcel? You know, kind of like they're doing at Phipps, except they're not bulldozing, they're just building out around that parcel, almost creating an exterior wall of mixed-use condo, apartment, retail, and resident. And then the core of that old mall is going to be kind of in the middle of that, which is, you know, it's going to cut back on the parking, which I guess they've got a big enough deck, but they've torn down some of that. And, you know, you're seeing some big department stores are filing, like Nordstrom is out. You know, I think
yeah.
JCPenney is, I mean, they've been clinging to life for
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, for real.
Put them under, you know, Macy's has got some investment coming in, but but they've been in that role for a while now. Because they had a hard time transitioning to the e-commerce space. And with their holdings and their real estate and everything, it's tough. So yeah, that may kind of open up if offices need new space and they need more space and they they can't pay for the midtowns and the downtowns. These malls may offer them an opportunity to open up there. I mean, you've got your parking, keep the food court alive. Well, there you go. You got to
exactly. There's your food hall right there. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, and it really kind of is almost ready made. And I mean, you could bring a gym in to one of those old anchor stores. They could fill that space on nice. You could bring in healthcare to one of those. And I mean, Emory is taking that West End Mall, I think.
Yeah.
One of those, and turning that entire thing into a healthcare facility.
Yeah.
I think that's still underway. That'd be kind of interesting to see what's going on. And it was interesting what Cheryl was talking about too, with the assessments and the rates and everything. I mean, it's been kind of almost a little confusing with everything going on. I've been seeing sales just within my own neighborhood. I mean, people are paying $200,000 more than I paid for my house, which is awesome.
Nice.
And I mean, they're listing in that, and they're getting it. And in the virtual assessment, I know Georgia appraisers are kind of all over the map because there's not a lot of regulation on that. Maybe that'll threaten them enough to go, okay, we got to crank down here if we're going to save ourselves. But yeah, and I mean, I haven't seen the Zillow owns this home kind of around here yet, but I know that's in other areas too. So it'll be interesting to see if that continues as well. I think that will probably slow down, but people moving right now that's got to be a tough decision because there's so much unknown. Yet the house across the street, which they literally paid $200,000 more than I did, those people bought that house 2 months ago, have not moved in yet. They're now just doing some work. So and they were willing to pay 50 over that, but the house would not qualify. So they actually had to lower the price down because they got into a bidding war, and they're like, hey, you can't get a mortgage for that. So this is what it's going to be. Who wants it? 10 seconds. So,
right. Wow.
Well,
so, go ahead. Sorry.
As in a lot of other markets, hospitality, hotel, restaurant, I mean, that's definitely going to take a hit. A lot of people have put expense, because we were doing some of our West Coast offices were doing for a hotel, a restaurant group that had about 100 locations. We were doing renovations of all of it, and that just stopped. In fact, I think they went out of business.
Oh, damn.
So, you're talking about your evictions and that kind of stuff. I mean, I think that's going to be a big play in that, is who's left there and what the landlords are going to be left holding the bag for, and trying to get other people in that space as quickly as possible. I mean, I think on the back side, there's going to be a lot of people looking to take advantage of those opportunities. They're going to see value there. They're going to see, hey, this is a way to get in at a discount, make this thing work. And I think, as things continue on, people are going to be more amenable to that idea. It's like, yes, let's just keep it rolling. AC's got a good landlord. It's a smart man. offer the deal, and man, you went right there and said, "Hey, that's awesome." However,
yeah, that was amazing.
That's
awesome.
Hey, on your planning and stuff, I did read an article that there at North Point Mall in Alpharetta, the Lord and Taylor building that's vacant there on the opposite side of where Sears was, that a company is looking to go in there and make that an indoor soccer facility. So
yeah,
that's cool.
I don't know if that's going to happen, but yeah.
And they've had plans in place for that, where that Sears was, to take that down and build out residence and kind of ground level, street level retail as well as like a park type amenity. And that actually got approval and was kind of starting to move forward. Don't know where that lies right now. Which to me, everything about that project just I was just envisioning a MARTA station coming in there because it was all positioning for that. I know there's big expansions. That's another thing I'm tracking really hard right now. I mentioned to you guys the 5 Point station renovation, complete redo. That's starting to gather. That already has a lot of steam, but it's continuing to roll, and that's all based on the 2026 World Cup. This is going to be their center point for the transit system for that event. Kind of like the ramp up for the Olympics. You're going to see ramp up at the airport and with MARTA on that, getting ready for this World Cup coming in here. So that should hopefully infuse some enthusiasm and some money in some of these larger infrastructure and other projects in and around the city to keep things rolling. So I think our rebound is going to be good, but it's so conflicting from what we hear, and as you mentioned, Reed, and that's a great point. You gotta follow the money. Is the doom and gloom, is that all about their ad revenue, or is there any truth to it? Well, I think it's about ad revenue.
Agreed.
Nobody can really predict what's going on. I mean, there is a massive demand. There's a massive groundswell leading up to this. Why would that just completely go away? It's not.
Right.
It's going to change some, and some of these small businesses and even medium sized aren't going to be able to last if we continue much longer. That's unfortunate, but that demand on the restaurants and on that kind of thing is still going to be there, so it'll open up for new owners to come in.
Right, new opportunities.
And I saw that Kevin Rathburn had to close his place at Krog early, which he was already going to have to close.
Oh, really?
Because they were not going to. Yeah. It was going to be like this fall. He was going to kind of do a blowout and everything. But
that's my favorite steakhouse in Atlanta. I think it's better than Bones, but
yeah. That was already in play.
There's something.
What's the name of the steakhouse?
Kevin Rathman's.
Oh, wow.
Do you know that? You should.
I've heard a lot. I haven't even went there yet. No, I thought you said house. I was like, no.
Yeah. Don't take house away from you.
I agree.
It seems like the developer already had some plans for that whole area because they filed like the next day, like a overarching thing. So there must have been some either dispute or something. But Kevin Rathman also closed KR Steak Bar too, which was over, other location. So I don't know if that was the same developer or what, but I was curious.
Hey guys,
I don't know. But
I just want to put it
clear that it was.
What I was going to say is we're running over on time, so if anybody needs to go, don't feel bad. I know we all got stuff to do, but if anybody wants to continue this, thank you all for being on here today. Cheryl, with your appointment still coming through, and Darby, thank you so much for being a part of this today. You're welcome back whenever you want to. Glad to see all your faces. Too bad Darby can't figure out how to work out technology. He must have not had his hair ready. But no, yeah. So we can continue this if you want, but I know some of y'all got to get on with your day. Real quick, I do have something for Roman, and throwing it out there. If I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and this is kind of what we all touched on, and y'all brought up the malls and everything. I think there might be opportunity for going to some of these people, and maybe not right now. Now's the time to plan and strategize for it, but going to some of these office owners, these mall owners and stuff, about redeveloping some of that space, using it in a different aspect, because we do know that Atlanta has such a surplus and we're building more. And there's going to be a huge backlash. So I think there could be an opportunity there to actually be that driving force and be that voice for change here in the Atlanta market.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's
Great
say
idea.
we all get back together, and I know a great architect who's on this call that can help us with that, or runs the architect division. Yeah. So it's
Got
something
a
I've
good
been.
size firm, we can do it.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Well, thank y'all, everybody. Like I said, leave it up if y'all want. If not, all right. Bye,
All right,
y'all.
guys. Take care. All right.
All right.
All
Thank
right.
y'all. Take
You
care.
guys have a great day.
Y'all too.
Yeah.
Bye,
Thanks.
guys.
Awesome. Hey, Darby, I appreciate it, brother.